Dealing with homesickness for the Philippines. My name is Tessie. When I immigrated to the US in the early 1980s, I lived in a town with only 2,000 people, Joseph City, Arizona. My American husband was working nearby. It was predominantly Mormon, and being Catholic and brown-skinned, I felt I didn't really belong there. Unlike Joseph City, Manila, where I had lived, was a vibrant metropolis. My friends and I often meet. I have a large family that I was close to. And suddenly, my world changed. I have to admit, when I was in the Philippines, I couldn't wait to go to the US. And when I finally arrived in the US, I wanted to go back home. I wanted to call my folks all the time, but long-distance calls were very expensive at that time. The feeling of love for my husband was overpowered by the feeling of isolation. I felt like my body was in the US, but my soul was still in the Philippines. I wish I had a private jet that would just whisk me to the Philippines. Homesickness happens to all of us when we move away. When we immigrate to another country, where we had no relatives or friends, and know that we won't see them for a long time, the feeling of isolation is very strong. For children, teens, and adults who go to school or work, it's not so bad, because eventually they'll find new friends in school or at work. But for seniors, 62 and over, leaving their friends behind in the Philippines, knowing that they might not see them anymore, that feeling can be devastating. Even if the seniors are with their children and grandchildren, they are often left alone at home with no one to talk to. And if the senior can't drive, she feels like she's imposing on others to drive her where she wants. And usually they'll say, "Oh, I don't want to bother you." Of course, there's social media, Facebook, texting, Skype, but for most of the seniors, they prefer person-to-person interaction. What should seniors do? Well, get involved with your grandchildren's activities, help with homework, tell them stories about the Philippines, make them lunch. There's so many things you can do with your grandchildren. And if you're in the US, there are senior centers. They can provide transportation to and from the center. Take classes, meet others, but try to get out of the house, because you will be depressed if you just at the house 24 hours, 7 days a week. It can drive you crazy. How did I deal with homesickness? After crying for a while, sometimes asking myself, what did I get into? I decided I couldn't have everything. I will either go back or stay. And I decided to stay. I said, I have to make this work. Instead of sulking and crying, I learned how to drive and to ride a bike. There was no public transportation in a small town with 2,000 people. I was determined to get out of the house. So there were no jobs in a place with 2,000 people. So I looked for babysitting or even cleaning jobs. None of them materialized. Then I looked at this building across the street where I live. It's a school. It's a huge building that housed students from kindergarten to high school. I applied there, and with a college degree and a good command of English, I was accepted as a substitute teacher. I was thrilled with the pay because it was 5 times what I would get in the Philippines. My jobs in the Philippines were in advertising and television. But fortunately, there was no requirement for an education field or degree to be a substitute teacher. I have never taught in my life, so I was terrified when I got a call at 6 in the morning to substitute for a teacher who had been bit by a scorpion. I was not told what subject to teach. I reported within an hour, and then I found out that I was going to teach computer. Now, this was in the 1980s, almost 4 decades ago, when computer was just starting to emerge. And I asked the secretary, excuse me, what subject again? And she said, computer. I panicked. I said, I have never seen a computer before. And she said, don't worry. As long as you have the class under control, you'll be fine. So, I entered the classroom. It was filled with rows and rows of computers. I glanced at the teacher's instruction, basically just telling me what pages they're going to work on. I greeted these tall high school students as they loomed over me. I made eye contact with each of them, smiling. Hi, good morning. But inside me, I was terrified. And oh my God, I wanted to run. But I thought, I have to make this work. This is part of dealing with homesickness. Just do it. I told them that I was from the Philippines and that I had a confession. That got their attention. I said, I have never seen a computer before, and I don't even know how to turn it on. They laughed. And I said, instead of me teaching you, you should be teaching me. They laughed again. I continued, my job right now is to make sure that you do your work. And I pointed at the board where I wrote what pages they're going to work on. And I also said, and I want to make sure you're not going to be killing each other on my watch. And they laughed again. I asked, who's the smartest student? And they pointed at a student who came forward. And I said, if you have any questions, don't ask me, ask him. And they laughed again. So that was how I survived my first day of teaching in the U.S., my first job in the U.S. I felt that by being honest with my ignorance, I actually made a connection with them. At least I made them laugh. And I made them realize that, I'm not perfect. That was the first positive step I took in dealing with homesickness. To work and interact with others. over time, we moved to a bigger city where I met some Filipinos at church, and we were in the same boat. So we supported each other. Eventually, my homesickness faded with time as I adjusted to my adopted country. Time really heals all. In essence, just like any problem, you have to find solutions instead of sulking. Do not burden your husband with problems he cannot fix. Don't keep telling him you're going home because you're going to drive him crazy. You either stay or leave. If you want to leave, leave. But if you're going to stay, get over it. You can't have everything in life. Thanks for watching.